Alright.
What diagram sentences?
Call to order. City of Negaunee special meeting Thursday, October 16th, 2025. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are you doing it? You want me to do it?
No, I'll do, well, you do it since I'm doing the.
Councilmember Becker.
Yes.
Councilmember Howard. Councilmember Flowey.
Here.
Councilmember Kangas.
Here.
Councilmember Dietz.
Here.
Councilmember Ganavati.
Present.
I am also present. Moving on, entertain a motion for approval of the agenda, please. All right, Kevin and Dave with a second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Number 5, public comment. So you got public comment? No?
I was promised punch and pie.
He's got a comment.
Your name and address first, please?
65 Jasper Street, Ishpeming.
All right, closing public comment. Moving on. Number 6, 2026 budget work session. Nate, this is where you're gonna take over.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So tonight you have 2 documents in front of you. One is the overall budget. Before we start, you did receive this little supplemental thing. So if you just go to the back of your document here, the big one in the black book, page 101 and 102, just check at the very top to make sure you're replacing the title page with the right one. They should be the same, I believe, because I checked mine and they were on that one. I don't know if you guys have exactly the same one I got. So it should be municipal street millage revenues, and there should be another one that says municipal street millage expenditures. So I'll give you a minute to flip to those and put those in place. That's the only one we got. In the meantime, while you're doing that, we do have a full budget, and then we'll have the budget message here. I'll reference this not very much. I'm required to give you a budget message. More or less, I'm just stating in this budget message what I'm suggesting we should spend based on the CIP and what has been turned in on this budget. So they match each other just in a word format and kind of give you a forecast. I will start out with this document though, and the biggest thing I want to bring to your attention is obviously we already talked about the ice arena and how we may have to go to a millage, but that's all yet to be determined and decided by the council, of course, and then ultimately by the voters. We have a while to get there. The only thing I did not disclose to the public was we cannot bring this to a vote to the public after we do all of our stuff until May. That's the earliest. And that's pretty much when we want to do that, only because, or a couple of reasons. One, because it's state law, because that's the earliest we can do a millage on that type. 2, because we want to get it done. We don't want to wait to see if the millage passes and do all the work afterwards, because we could lose a whole hockey season. So the hope is we'll be able to do a lot of behind the scene things to get it prepped up, to be able to sign the bond if the millage passes, award the bids, and get construction going on whatever needs to be constructed to get the facility in the position we want it to be in. So there's still a lot of like, is it gonna happen or is it not gonna happen? There's a couple steps we have to do. That's mostly gonna be outlined at our next meeting. Not all of it, but a majority of it. We do have an engineer that will come in to help with that conversation. He'll be able to answer some of those as well. And then lastly, I just wanna mention that pension funds. Now every so often we have to do something called an actuarial, which takes all of our data on who's retired, who's in the system collecting money, and who's paying into the system, and who is going to retire on the same system. They use all their calculations, and it's very, very intense. I don't know what they do. That's why we pay them money to do it. And then at the end, they spit out all these numbers. And it's good for usually about 3 years, maybe 5 tops. These numbers, you have to pay what they say you're gonna pay by state law. And what's happening now is as we get more money in through property taxes, and that's not because we're raising taxes or anything like that, because homes are being built or the property value is being uncapped, so new tax revenues being captured from homes, land, and commercial property, and people are building other things in the community. That's gone up. So when I first got here, that was at about $1.2 million in tax revenue. They call that ad valorem, and you'll see this in the budget here in a minute. That's roughly, I think, now about almost $2.4 million. So in 7 years, that has grown exponentially and is allowing us to be able to do more than we ever had done in the community before. But with that said, prices are rising, and also healthcare has risen dramatically as well, and the pension liability is really sucking a lot of that extra money away. I do expect as more homes come in and more businesses come in, that will be offset. But I just want to bring everybody aware that it could get a little tight sometimes where we're not able to do as much as we would want to do, but we can still do some things that are significant for the community in regards to improvements to streets, sidewalks, the pertinent things that really need to be done, maybe some parks and things of that nature, as we continue to try to find alternative funding as well in the form of grants. So with that said, does anybody have any questions about the budget message in particular? I know it's not the easiest thing to read, I do apologize. So this is kind of one of those things where it's pretty dry. This is not the funnest meeting of all meetings because it's just a bunch of numbers. But this is our requirement with the state. We have to balance our budget. We cannot send an unbalanced budget every year. And then just because we approve anything, which we're not approving anything tonight per se, doesn't mean it's just go spend all that money, because the money has to be there. And then also on top of that, there's a whole lot of things that have to happen. So if I wanted to buy a new car and that was in the budget, I still have to go out to bid. I still have to bring that to you guys. You still need to approve it, so on and so forth. Those big type projects need to be approved. In addition to that, we watch closely in all of our funds. Just because we say we can buy $100,000 in light poles, doesn't mean we should or have to buy $100,000 in light poles. We maybe only spent 40, and something fell through where we didn't actually need that extra 60, which is great because we don't want to spend a bunch of money on stuff we don't necessarily need sitting in the yard or sitting on a shelf, because that doesn't do any good for the community overall. So anyway, sorry, one more time, any more questions about the budget message at all? Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll let you do that part.
Yeah, just while we're on the ice arena, maybe we won't have this until next month, it sounds like, but if I understood correctly, the intent would be to seek a millage from the voters, and if that's approved, then we would go and get a loan for the project, to do the project at the ice arena, and then the millage, as that comes in each year, would pay that loan.
Absolutely, yep.
And I thought you indicated something along the lines of $70,000 in annual revenue from a millage like that?
Yeah, so.
Ballpark, I mean, I'm not gonna hold you to it. Do we have any idea what the loan payments would be on that for like $1 million project?
No, not right now, so it all depends on the terms, right?
Yeah, of course.
Which I don't know what those terms could be quite yet, and the bond attorney will help us with that type of stuff. But basically, the suggestion right now that I would be giving to council, and this is still gotta get vetted up and make sure I'm telling you good information, but as it stands right now, $500,000, which would raise $70,000 roughly a year for 30 years, that's $2.1 million. If the project is about 1.1 to 1.5, then we will bond that out. That'll include all the costs for construction, buying materials, all that stuff. Engineering, also will probably dump in the election costs, because we may be the only election, and it'll cost us about $8,000 to $10,000 to run a special election in May. Then all that'll get paid up front, and the plan is that $70,000 comes in, it pays for the principal, the interest, and then there's some money left over that gets dumped into the backside and stays in that specialized fund.
That's,
In addition to that, I'm gonna suggest that we, and this would be after everything gets completed or somewhere in between, I don't know. We actually turn the ice arena into its own fund, or means we separate it from the general fund,
mhm,
make it its own enterprise fund, so that becomes its own business, like the electric, water, sewer, so on and so forth. And then with the increased availability of ice, like I mentioned,
mhm.
adding about 8 weeks, that'll add more revenue. And then with the efficiency of electrical and other utilities should decrease, and that'll add more money to the bottom line. And hopefully keep it at least at a break-even operating point, hopefully above, and that money will stay in there, but if at least at a break-even. Now, we do take some of that other millage we talked about, the recreation millage, and we subsidize parts of the ice arena with like utility, or not utilities, but
Non-infrastructure stuff. The
if-
things
yeah,
are allowed to spend.
workers,
Mhm, staff.
yeah, staff. So that's kind of that in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And what
That's-
but the reason that would be suggested is because then when it becomes sustainable, having its own cash flow and having a backup plan for the future, so this doesn't happen again, we will not be in this position, and we're creating an entity that can stand by itself. And like I said, traditionally, these do not stand by themselves ever.
Mhm.
I just talked to several people before, they're giving me horror stories about the golf courses that municipalities own, they never make money. Pacific arenas, convention centers, like downstate convention centers,
Mhm.
people think those things will make a buttload of money, but they don't, because you gotta repair them, and you gotta operate them, and they just don't make money.
Mhm.
They bring people in, and they stay in the hotels and stuff, and all
Yeah.
that's great, but really the public subsidizing that.
No, and that's good, that was the part I was looking for was whether or not you thought that a half a mil, 70,000 a year would do more than service the loan. Would it allow us to squirrel away, whatever, 5,000, 10,000, so that we're not in this boat in 25 years again, right? So, if we're gonna go to the voters and ask for half a mil, and that's all that's gonna do is service the loan, we should probably ask for a little bit more, so that we're actually able to put some money aside,
Yeah,
so it doesn't happen
It
again.
should be part of the ballot language that we're going to make it its own enterprise and all money is going to be allocated towards.
that millage, that probably be a step too far on that millage request, because it's for the millage itself, not the operating of the facility. Because one thing we can't do is I'm not gonna say we can't do that specifically, but generally speaking, you don't wanna hamstring yourself and other councils in the future in case that needs to be undone. But I think that we all agree that we need to make it its own thing. But most importantly, Amanda, is like, we make sure that whatever monies we collected from that, it can't leave the ice arena and go
Yeah.
anywhere else, yeah. So that'll be part of that,
A
yeah.
lot of people
for sure.
that were asking
Yeah.
about that, and so I wanna read.
And that's what those villages do, they're very specific in language what you can and cannot do with that money. And like, we can't take, like street millage money and go pave the parking lot there, cause that's not a street
Yeah.
unfortunately, so, those type of things kind of fall.
One thing I had talked to Dave, I had a conversation with Dave Nelson,
Mhm.
last week or earlier this week, that, if he, I sent him information about the DNR, grant that Ironwood actually redid their, they got a new chiller and cooler and ice maker or whatever, I don't know the mechanics, for their ice arena, with the DNR grant. And, he said he had applied for that, before and was denied. But he said he's going to, request Ironwood's, grant application to see what specifically they said. And I encouraged him that it might be a good idea to collaborate with, the school, the superintendent's office, because the high school plays hockey there, that it might be a good collaboration between, educational and, DNR or city grant, to, you know, that might solidify it a little bit more, and make it a little more attractive for the grants to, you know, do something, because it is the high school kids that are using it, it's not just private users and everything, so.
Yeah, I can shed a little light on it, cause he did get some information back. So the grant that Dave has attempted to get a couple times and we were told that we weren't eligible, was inaccurate on the DNR's part, but we got clarity. But, so every year, that specific grant, only 10 to 20% of the overall funding in that grant pool, whatever money it is, can only be used for indoor facilities. So in that circumstance, it's not just ice arenas, it's all indoor facilities apparently. So we would be going up obviously against everybody across the state, but also on top of that, there's another thing for like indoor ones that have to do with like ice arenas. It's something like kind of outdoor, I don't know how much snow you get and all that. So there's a formula involved to get you even close to eligibility to that, from my understanding. So we will attempt to do that still, and if that does happen, we get that money, it's a 50% match, so you still have to do 500,000, which can still be the proceeds of the millage. All of that would do is like save us $500,000, which would be great. We're gonna attempt to get other grants too, that we just haven't been able to get so far. We won't stop, but you know, it's just not, it's not gonna be as easy as we would hope it would be. And then just some feedback on the child thing. Unfortunately, with the children, they don't really care about any of that stuff. They do wanna know if you have partnerships and stuff, but you don't unfortunately get any extra points for that. They give you extra points for like ADA compliance, which might be able to play in there a little bit. If you're gonna, really it has to do with like ADA and access type stuff. You would think that there would be more things if you had collaboration and stuff with certain things, but unfortunately, they don't make them that way. There are some grants that are that way though.
And certainly, yeah, maybe not on the grant fund, but I 100% agree on the going the millage route. You know, in 25, 26 years I've lived here, I've never seen this community turn down a school millage. You know, so the more that it is perceived as benefiting school kids, the local team, all of that, the better it is from the communication standpoint.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that occurred to me was, you know, for those that either don't have school age kids or don't have kids that play hockey or, you know, whatever, you know, it would be great if there was something that said, you know, and you can use this facility too, right? So there's public skating, right? There's open hours, and I think that there's a minimal amount, it's $3 or something to skate. And if we just said, you know what, if you're a Nagani resident, you skate for free. You know, because you're already paying for it in your taxes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and something like that, if it doesn't really make us a lot of money to offer that, let's just offer it for free because people already pay for it.
There'll
They're
be
more
some
likely to
messaging
support
that has to be involved. We'll also have to look into like if we're under any grant requirements right now, because that facility was built with grant requirements. I don't know how far that grant extends out, if it's a forever thing or if it's a 40-year thing. If it is, there's certain things you cannot do, like you can't differentiate spending, like you can't say, oh, Amanda can skate for free, but John can't because he lives in Nagani Township. You might not be able to do that, but we are gonna look into those things because obviously that's important for the long-term health of the facility as well. I personally don't think people are gonna have a hard time getting this over, and any help you can get from all the user groups that go out and, I should say, any help, any work that user groups and people in the community do that want to support the village, that's their right to do that, and they want to pass that, then they can certainly do that. Just like anybody who didn't want to do it could do the, I guess, a negative campaign.
I've heard from a lot of the hockey moms, I'll say, and they are all talking about, they're already organizing, they're already going to start fundraising, they're gonna do everything they can. And, you know, which is great. And what else was I gonna say? Oh, I thought maybe another idea, you know, to increase, you know, traffic through the ice arena and make it more attractive to younger kids. I mean, there's not a lot to do in the winter time around here. And it would be, you know, if we put arcade games in there or, you know, vamp up the concessions so that it's like, you know, not just candy and chips, but like, you know, dinner, you know, and they can go there and spend some time and, you know, play games, open skate. You know, I was thinking back to the, you know, this is not the same, but we used to have a roller rink in Marquette and they had arcade games and pizza and popcorn and, you know, pretzels, hot pretzels and stuff. So it was like, that place was packed all the time. I remember having birthday parties there. You know, it'd be cool if we could really, you know, make it a thing, you know, make it a place where the kids wanna hang out, not just because, you know, that would make a little bit of extra money for the ice arena, but also keep our kids out of trouble, you know, and give them a place to go.
And if I may mention, maybe it's in the beginning of that, about, how, like wording of how, you know, money can be created and, it's for this, for the ice arena.
Yeah,
It's like, we kind of like, okay, to get put on a ballot, we kind of come up with the wording for it, but we also run it through the attorney to make sure that it's
Yeah.
worded, you know, A plus B equals C,
yeah.
you know, so it's like, I read it, it's like, oh, geez, flying elephants, you know, type of thing, no, they're running horses, you know, type of thing. So it's, try to make it as specific as possible. That's why I take a long time to get with Mills, because I gotta read it,
Mhm.
I gotta read it again, so it's just, you know, I sat in this chair. But it's made very clear.
Mhm.
Well, the one thing that's clear, I think the council obviously supports doing something and moving forward on that. The only thing I wanna caution you on is, as a member of the council, do not say the city supports this, okay? Because,
Well, against the ethics ordinance.
well, we can't like tell people how to vote, we don't wanna seem impartial, even though we all said we support it. I mean, we all support it personally, and we're gonna show our support by getting it on the ballot and approving all the measures need to be, but we can't say, vote for this or vote for that, we will
But
put
we
out.
can say, like, we personally
You
support
can,
it
yes, you can do that,
and
just don't
encourage
say
other
the
people.
city supports it, I mean, cause it makes it sound like we're electioneering for one. But we will put out a flyer, cause I don't know if anybody remembers that when we had the other village, we put out a flyer. And basically, if it will say, if you vote yes, this is what will happen, if you vote no, this is what's gonna happen, to some degree, and that'll be all vetted through the attorneys, because we could be held responsible for that. I don't know if you go to prison, probably not, but you probably get a slap on the wrist and probably pay a hefty fine, I imagine. So we just wanna make sure that, as an individual, you can say, I support voting yes on it, and I plan on voting yes on it. But you can't, I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna say the city of Nagani says everybody should vote yes on it, you know, you guys would never say that anyways. I mean, I'd probably be the only one in the position to say that, but I'm not gonna say that out loud, because I don't wanna put that in jeopardy, so.
I don't think we're gonna get a lot of people
I don't
saying
think
no
so.
about this. I
Yeah.
think that the general consensus that I've seen is that everybody's all for it. If it's only gonna be an extra $50 to $100 a year, I think most people are like, yeah,
Good news.
I'll
and you
do
can-
that right now.
And you can tell people, if it's, and then we'll move on, because we need to move on to the budget next. If, you have $100,000 in SEV value, the $500,000 is gonna be, $5. If it's gonna be for a year, if it's gonna, that, from my understanding. Now, I could be too simplistic and not have that correct, but from my understanding, it's $1 for every $1,000, so it's 50 cents on the dollar. If I'm correct, my math, 100 times 0.5 is $5. If it's 200,000, which most people's homes are between 170 to 240, they're most likely to be paying about $12 to $15 extra a year on average, and that information will be made available as well. So we just gotta get those analyses down first, so we're not giving folks a lot of false information. But the good thing is, I mean, $50, we don't even have to worry about that. I mean, this is gonna be even easier to sell to folks, so. All right, well, good, that was a great conversation, Mr. Mayor, on that. I'm glad to see you guys, agree with that step forward. We'll have more information as we go. So what we're gonna do is we're not really gonna talk about the revenues that much, because the revenues are always projected, and expenses are too. The expenses is where we're kind of setting the limit on what we can spend. So just a note on page 3, we're saying we're gonna bring in about $5.4 million, roughly. Then we're gonna pop over to page 4. And I think Amanda and you, right, you said you haven't done this before?
I sat through one.
Oh, you sat through, okay. So typically what we do for this budget is we will go from department to department. I won't make any major notifications about any major changes. Typically, they don't change very often. I'll know if there's a big project or something going on. If anybody has a specific question when we're in that department, I'll ask. And then if there's nothing, no comment, then I'm gonna move on to the next one. And we don't go line by line. But if anybody has any questions, we stop, we can go back if we need to, if something didn't make sense. We can go as slow as we all need to. This is not the funnest thing to do, it's not the easiest thing to do. So I'm just gonna maybe turn to page 5 real quick, and you'll see we are balanced. So the same number you saw for revenues is the same number you saw for expenditures, roughly about 5.4, so $5,380,287. All right, so we're gonna pop over to page number 6. This is the council's budget, and this is in the general fund, and you can see at the very top, it says general fund. That will change over time, but we're gonna be in the general fund for the first part of this for quite a bit, so. This, if you look at year 25, which is the year we're in for the budget, right in the middle of the whole page, you'll see we budgeted last year $23,700. This year, we're recommending $30,950. So not too much of an increase. Part of that increase has to do with that Community and Hearts and Soul project that we're working on. Part of it'll be a carryover for next year. So that's, you'll see a differential in there. You'll see some other changes. Looks like some changes mostly in contract services a little bit. So nothing major to look at. Any questions about this budget? We're gonna move on to the city manager budget. So this is the budget in my office, which pays for my wages and all that stuff. It also pays for part of Ann's, I believe, if not all of Ann's. I can't remember completely on that part, but part of her stuff's in there. There's other things in there too, like retirement, dues and subscriptions, office equipment. There is some travel and training in there for me as well, which is under the contract that the council has with myself. There's communications in there. Some of that stuff is like administrative stuff, so it's not like, I'm sending out letters to people and it costs you about $2,000 to send out letters. That's stuff that has to do with like the actual inner workings of the city manager's office itself. So that goes from $176,000 last year to $165,000 this year, so we dropped that budget down a bit. Any questions on that budget? Moving on to page 8 under the clerk. This one has increased a little bit. That has to do with some election issues, and that's spread over elections and also the clerk's duties. Plus, on top of that, we have to change our financial software out. The software we're using now is terminating, and now we have to get new software that will cost, we believe, about $30,000. It could be a little more, but it'll be spread out through the departments because all the different departments use it, including the enterprise funds as well. So once we get that number, I believe we're gonna have to go out to bid, and then we'll have to approve that at the council level as well. So that's why you're seeing a decent little increase there, and because there's gonna be a big major election. Presidential elections are expensive, gubernatorial elections are expensive. So, any questions on this budget? Border review, this is pretty standard, it's $850. It was $850 last year. Moving on to the next page, 10, city treasurer. This one went up slightly. It has to do with wage increases, a few expenses up. So you see 107,000 last year budgeted, doesn't mean we're gonna spend that. And we're at 112 right now for next year. Any questions on the city treasurer? Moving to the assessor. The assessor is pretty much the same too. It always basically stays around this number, 42,500 last year, or I should say this year, and 42,500 for next year. We contract with the county to do all of our assessing. Big benefit for us. All right, moving on to page number.
Quick
Yes.
question, just for everybody's knowledge here. Let's go back to page 10. So when we look at 25, budget is 107, current 25 estimated total is 1018. So when we under or overestimate and we don't spend that money, how does that money get? That just stays in the general fund, which brings us to a surplus in the general fund at the end of that year.
If you don't spend the money, it does stay in the fund, yes. That doesn't mean it's gonna equate to a surplus, because you might spend it over in another
And
section.
another section.
So you always gotta wait for everything to shake out the end of the year, which is when the audit comes out, they'll tell you where everything ends. Typically, when you get your January packet, you'll have your December numbers as well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because you get your bills kind of a little bit later. You'll see kind of where things end, but that doesn't mean they're gonna always end up there, because sometimes we get bills all the way to February, which can be backdated to pay December 31st. In addition to that, sometimes there's adjustments in line items because things got put in the wrong spot by accident, or auditors don't like that it was put here, they want it there instead. So there'll be some adjustments at the very end, and that's best reflected in the audit. And then when you get your new budget, you can kind of see where numbers actually fell year to year. So, yep. Page number 12, elections. This last cycle, we were budgeted at 86,250. I don't know what we're gonna be at. The elections are always all over the place. It's bizarre. There's so many different regulations now, rules, and you gotta spend all this time, buying new equipment, and then there's also some things involved with extra days and all that stuff. So we've been able to work together with other entities to kind of cut back those costs. So you can see, like right now, we said 86,000, well, we're only projected to spend 40,000, which I hope is very true, because it would save us $40,000, and I would love that. And as you can see, as of June, we only spent almost $9,000. So I think we're gonna be way under budget on this one, and we're just worried that the gubernatorial elections will be a little bit different. She also has some election laptops and some Dropbox security cameras we're gonna have to install by law. The cameras have to be installed, but the election laptops, they need to be updated so often. They have certain software and securities on them. So it's just the cost of doing business with the election, unfortunately. So that's at 74,000. All right, moving on to page 13, city attorney. We got them set at 40,000 on the general fund, but they also get paid out of all the enterprise funds as well, when they do work for those enterprise funds. And we kind of set that across through the retainer, that we pay them whatever the monthly fee is. That gets spread out over those no matter what. But if they specifically do something for the water department or the sewer department, they get charged out of that. If it has to do more with general fund stuff, which is really a catch-all, a lot of it will be charged to here. So you can see the last couple of years, we've been 27, 25, last year was 53, well, we got a lot of litigation, we've been sued several times. Insurance picks some of that up, but some of that's not picked up through insurance as well, so. And plus, we've done a lot of ordinance adoptions and hearings and whatnot, so that also will add to that as well. And I also believe we didn't really start smoothing out those costs until like the last couple of years maybe. So we weren't charging those enterprise funds directly before, so. All right, moving on, page 14, City Hall. We were at 112,000 roughly for this year. We're down to 110. That stays pretty flat. I'm hoping we're not gonna have to make an investment in heating system, the new heating system that we have ordered is still yet to be installed. That's happening next week. We'll see what happens after this one's installed. And then if we need to buy the other one, which we know we will, but if we can wait 2 years, then we'll wait 2 years. And then we'll buy one in 2 years, and we kind of plan for that rather than have to do it, so. Any questions about City Hall? Moving to Police Department. Now, this is probably the single most large expenditure the city has. And this is a good example. Go to page 16. And look where we were several years back. We were under $1 million. Now, when I first got here, I think it was roughly about high sevens, roughly moving up to 8. But then I want you to roll back to the pension line, 857. Or excuse me, not pension line, 875. At the very bottom, third to the bottom, Act 45, 345 police pension. Watch how that number has grown over time. All the way up to from $230,000 to $388,000. Now, if that number keeps going, and let's scare this guy back here for a minute, keeps going and we don't have money start coming in and all that, there may come a time where we, as officers retire, we can't hire new ones in yet until that supplemental money is backfilled somehow through new taxes coming in. Meaning more houses getting built, businesses coming, and all that stuff, because we're getting to the point where it's gonna cost nearly, it's costing 40% roughly, I might be off on that number right now, probably about 30% of the overall budget, just in the police department, just to pay the pension line item. So it'd be very difficult to keep all the city services going. At this point, we're fine, but we gotta be cognizant of that and what's gonna happen in the future with everything, so.
How many officers are there currently? 6?
No, I think we have something, correct me if I'm wrong, 9, is it 10 now? With the chief. So we do have 2 retirements coming up. Chief would probably be one of them in the next, I would say, 3 years. And then, I don't remember Jeremy Ray? Maybe, I don't know which one is it? Sergeant, okay. Will be retiring, and I don't know if we're gonna be able to replace him, we'll see. That's a number of years out still. We might be fine. I just wanna bring that pension issue aware to everybody, cause that and healthcare definitely bite into a lot of our expenditures to being able to keep to the same level of services that we have and do some of the projects we need to do to keep the community moving forward. So nothing you can do about it right now, but just something we need to look at or keep an eye on over time. This budget's gone from 1.2 million roughly to 1.3, primarily because of the pension. But to be honest, the cops do a pretty good job of keeping a pretty tight ship. I mean, they don't really have any extra expenditures, and it's not their fault that the actuarial's coming that way either. Just like it's not our fault. It's just a matter of life, and the way the world is, and how the figures are coming out. So I don't have anything else to say about that, but we'll keep a close eye on this though. Moving on to page 17, fire department. This one's pretty easygoing. Last year we're 109. It roughly cost about 100,000, give or take 10 a year to run the fire department. It's all volunteer. And we have some capital expenditures in here. So I did eliminate the emergency generator, which has been on our wish list for a couple of years. And I did mention at the capital improvement meeting that we had at our first budget session that we're gonna attempt to find grant money to cover part of or all of the generator. If we're successful, great. If we're not, well, then we'll move it off to another year. But at minimum, we wanna put in that garage door so they have that pass-through on the backside of the fire hall. And that door is a commercial grade door. It is insulated, it is electric, and that does cost $20,000, we hope. I hope it's less than 20,000, but you never know. Any questions about the fire department?
Is there a new truck built yet?
No, the truck isn't built yet. I've been told the truck will be constructed probably most likely in December and be in our possession by February. So, only taken 3 years to get yours.
I watched how it's made the other day on fire
Yeah,
trucks.
it's just like I tell you, I mean, I buy a new vehicle, I'm hoping I can get it the day I leave the lot, so.
Never tell enough on that.
Yeah, it takes a while, but we're gonna get a high quality piece of machinery that we, you know, frankly should have probably done like 20 years ago. So, Public Works, page 18. This one's a pretty big one too, but this is generally, pretty good. It's up there a little bit because of the pension too. DPW, or Public Works is DPW. They do a lot of different things for us. It's not just like plowing. That comes out of different line items and different budgets, so let's make sure we understand that. Some of it's wages, some of it's, vehicle maintenance, repairs, there's different things in here, so, a lot of wages as well. So this really hasn't, it is up quite significantly, about $300,000. But if you look at the prior year in '24, it's only up about 100, and that's because, we were hoping that we could take the mechanics out of this page, out of this budget, I mean, and move them over to a different one. The auditors told us, no, we can't do that, so they ended up, putting them where they belong, and that ended up moving our budget up significantly back to where it should be now, in line with that, 2024 actual number, so. Any questions about DPW?
They really, nobody got overtime?
You know, sometimes they get overtime, and, you can see right now, there's none reported for actual, but a lot of times they'll convert it to, comp time, and they just use it that way. They prefer to have the extra time off, so, from my experience so far. Moving over to 19, page 19, we're still in the general fund. This is curb and sidewalk, and this is, we're zeroing this out. We're not spending any money from this fund. We're actually moving that money over to what they call major streets, Act 51 money. You can spend that type of money that comes from the state of Michigan for repairs and so on and so forth, of sidewalks. So rather than take it out of our general fund, we'll take it out from this other fund because it has a large chunk of money in there that we can utilize and not cut ourselves short on this side so much. Page 20, we're into the alley maintenance. This is a bond payment, so we typically don't have much alleyway maintenance we do, because like we've taken care of most of our problem children, I guess you wanna say, with alleyways. There are very few, there are little potholes here and there, but, this is a bond payment, so we took out a bond payment for like originally $120,000 to do 70% of the alleyways when interest rates were like below 2%. And we're reaping that benefit of those savings, and the people are reaping that benefit as well. The additional, or the remaining, I should say, 30% alleys have utilities under them, and that's what we're gonna tackle on our next sewer project, which will be coming up in 2027. And we'll get the rest of those alleyways taken care of, because primarily, most of our alleyways have sewer underneath of them. All right, moving on to general fund engineering services. This is just a little hold off in case we need to hire somebody to do something quick and fast. It's only $5,000. I think this year we don't show any use of it right now. I don't think we'll use it. We have it set at $5,000 for next year. Moving on to page 22, street lighting. We do not get free lighting, so unfortunately, we have to charge ourselves just like we charge customers. So the city does pay itself. It charges $28,000 or whatever it says on here, whatever it ends up being, out of the general fund for street lights, and then we pay that to the electric department for use of electricity. Just like City Hall doesn't get free electricity and all that stuff too. Moving on to page 23, general fund still, street maintenance. We have about $11,000 in here. This is like potholing. And there are other funds that cover more potholing if we need to use them. It just depends on year to year. And we can put other things in here too that we want for street maintenance. Bridges and culverts on page 24, this is just mostly, inspection almost every year. One year you can see on 2023, we actually had a project where we got a grant from the state, and we did the bridge out by the cemetery, painting and sandblasting and some other safety measures on there. So that's what that cost us. Next year, we're projecting $5,000 as well. Moving on to page 25, traffic control. This typically has,
I'm sorry,
yes, I'm sorry.
on that previous page there on bridges and culverts.
Sure.
You got 5,000 for supplies and 2,000 in for repairs,
Looks like that got added up wrong.
so that should be 7.
Yep, I'll mark that for
Yeah,
you.
I mean, it's not
I'm not sure.
not really a huge,
No, that's good
changes
because
the bottom line.
it does make a difference in the end. Sometimes there's calculation issues with the spreadsheets, so I'll bring that to your attention. Thank you. Page 25, traffic control. This has to do with buying supplies like signs and stuff. Typically not a lot comes out of here. We do have a lot of stuff already in-house. Some signs we can make ourselves, and then our guys are slowly replacing them if they're needed. We just haven't done a lot of that in recent years. In 2022, we did spend some number in signage, but last couple of years, we just have. Page 26, general fund, snow and ice control. We don't really have much expenditure out of here, but it's most of that's been re-diverted over to, money's coming out of the Act 51 accounts instead. That's just to keep more money in our fund. Landfill on page 27 is just a pass-through. So whatever we're gonna sell our services at, which we don't put any, we get nothing for it. It's all collected by, whatever the landfill tells us we have to pay them, we pay them. Whatever GFL says we pay them. And then, at the end of the day, we actually will get some money back from the landfill, cause it's like, I don't know, like profit sharing or something, I don't quite understand it myself. But we do get some money back, so when somebody throws a bunch of, like if they threw a whole building away there, we get a big chunk of money for that, so. Alright. Moving on to special events, one thing that we've done in here is we're in a position now with the DDA. We've done a really good job this year.
Cemetery.
Am I missing one?
28.
I'm missing a page. That printer, that ghost printer is trying to do this. Alright, page 28. Cemetery. Alright, so last year, or this year, we're at 162. We're at 152 next year. You can see I eliminated the water tank, primarily because I don't know whether we're gonna go that direction. If you don't know the water tank, I said in my notes, and it can get lost when there's a lot of stuff to do with people's lives. The water tank we have out there right now is working, but it is going to fail. It's super, super old. It's an old agricultural one. It builds up pressure, and then it allows the water to get spread out through all the lines we have in the system. What we might have to do is we might have to find a similar system, but not costing $75,000, or maybe put in a couple,
Where our numbers are different.
drop wells. He might have the old one.
Yeah, he
What do you got right now?
Was we took the heated power blanket.
Oh, okay, she took, yeah, so that, yeah, he has the old one. So we did eliminate that power blanket too, because we're buying that this year. Power blanket, is something that heats the ground in the winter time and takes like an hour to make the ground diggable, so you can then bury somebody in the winter time. Otherwise, we have to sit there and we have to blowtorch it for hours. It's a super waste of money and time, so. For $1,000, that'll definitely make a difference.
Way more fun.
Yeah, way more fun, yeah. Okay, so sorry about that on my end here. Are we on page 29 now,
We
special
are,
events?
yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, in that, going back to what I was saying, the DDA was taking advantage a little bit of this fund for some time, because we had to supplement to some degree to get events taken off there. Because at the front end, the DDA didn't get a lot of money, a couple thousand, maybe $10,000 a year. And then now they're moved up where they're getting roughly, you will see in here, I think it's about $40,000 a year. and they can sustain their own. So with the money they're bringing in, and the money they're bringing in for special events, from businesses and sponsors, all that activity, including bringing extra police officers in, or fire department, or so on and so forth, that can be covered by the DDA now. And then now, the special events are gonna move back to what they are doing at the same time they were helping the DDA, which is like things like Pioneer Days, parades, other events that are happening in the community. It doesn't mean we're gonna spend that much, but it covers those type of activities. All right, and you can see it significantly dropped from 31,000 to 24. So we're back to like 22 numbers, kind of about near pre-DDA timeframe. So, all right, page 30, planning and zoning. That's the department that Dave works in. And you can see his budget for this year was 101, he's dropping down to 94,000. No significant changes there. You will see we do have a blight enforcement line item that's set at $10,000. That could be for like blight removal, or for instance, could be the tear down of a building as well. Doesn't mean we'll spend it. We have spent it before, but not very often. Any questions about planning and zoning?
Is that cumulative or something? Cause it costs a lot more than $10,000 to tear down a building.
Well, it depends on the circumstance, like, a lot of times, like the last building we did, I think the only one we've only tore down, and it was either like a small like outshed maybe, but I think it was like a trailer of some sort, so it was significantly less than like a house, you know? But yeah, if it were a house, it probably cost sometimes between 25 to 30,000. Like even that building that's by City Hall, which has already been, I've already gotten permission from City Council like 5 years ago to get rid of that building, we just haven't done it yet. At the time when we got the budget for it, or a bid to find out what it costs, is about 14 grand to tear that thing down there. And mostly it had to do with the shingles, sometimes lead paint, you know, things of that nature. So that white building that's kind of just sitting out there by City Hall. Greenfield, yeah.
Okay.
Eventually what will happen is that building will get removed, and then they're gonna tear all that ground out of there and make that into a bigger parking lot. Because we are running out of parking space for the library and all that fun stuff. All right, planning and zoning, any questions there? All right, moving on to library. Library is typically about straight even like the fire department. 117 for this year, we're going to 122. She needs a couple new computers. You'll see a couple price increases here and there, nothing significant. She also does use some of the state aid you'll see down here later in the budget. That's a different type of fund, not associated with the general fund. Moving on to page 32, parks. We're at 116 this year, we're at 117 next year. We have flower baskets budgeted in here. We have some mulch in here, and we have some sidewalks in here coming out of the capital outlay. The DDA will also be covering some of the downtown stuff as well. One thing to remember is like when everything got packaged together and approved by the council, some of the places in the downtown were made official parks, so they fall under the Parks Department, they don't fall under the DDA. Typically, nothing falls under the DDA except for the activities of enriching the downtown. That's what their job is, to create more business and to increase the value of property in downtown. That's their only goal, really. There's a lot of other things that make that goals happen, but they're not typically responsible for that. But that doesn't mean over time, as that money grows in their account, as they're getting more, that they're not gonna be less responsible for these things. So they may start paying for flowers more, and the mulch, and so on and so forth, because they should also, in my opinion, that I'm giving to you, share in that burden, because they're benefiting from it as well. So. Moving on to page 33. Ice arena, so we can see here the ice arena is scheduled out for $235,000 this year. Next year we have it at 208. We have some capital improvements in here, we may not do those, depending on if the millage passes, and just put those in together with the millage rather than spend it out of the general fund upfront. And so we can see over the years, like 2022, it cost us $117,000. In 2023, $185,000. In 24, $153. So it's like all over the map on expenditures. But some of that also has to do with like emergency repairs and so on and so forth. So you can see underlying 930, we had emergency repair in there of $38,000. Also on top of that, we paid for the Zamboni rate outright, and that's $17,000 for capital outlay. So every year we've been paying on that Zamboni, well, roughly $17,000 since 2019, I believe. So I think the last payment was just made on it this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Compared to on page 2, this for comparison for y'all, you can see how the ice arena, like, so ice arena in 2022 made $115,000. It brought in rental fees, but then it cost us $117,000. In 2023, it brought in $108,000 in sales. It cost us $185,000. So there's some years it could be right on the fence. A lot of years, just because of the maintenance issues alone, if those can be eliminated, then I think we're gonna be set in a really good spot. So I'm really excited about that, to see how that really turns the page. All right, any more questions about ice arena at all? All right, moving on to recreation. Roughly $56,000 this year, 62 next year. Not much in addition. They're gonna try to get 2 refrigerators for Lacombe filled, because they're not keeping things cold. And then they wanna buy a field drag, so it's better for the field and can get it smoothed out faster and quicker.
Put a timer on those lights.
Somebody should be shutting those off. We
Yeah,
can check into it.
the mayor's been shutting it off.
The mayor's been shutting it
all
off?
summer, yeah. 11 o'clock at night when he's trying to go to bed.
I would make a note of that. To be honest, yeah. How you're trying to go to bed.
Let's get on that pension
It's,
program.
They leave that light on every single night, it's crazy. Walk out there.
It would be fun, it'd be nice for them to, I wonder where the light switch is, if it has to be in the building.
It's on the side of the building, it's right outside.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
big breaker.
I will look into that. We'll take care of that for you. Oh, boy.
It's really soft,
You know
really.
where the light switch is.
Yeah.
Because I gotta shut it off.
Yeah, that's funny. Wonder how many years has that been going on?
Well, I've been there since 2018.
Oh
so-
my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. All right, and then moving on to, page 35, and this is where we're gonna get a little shocky moment, you'll see what I'm talking about. I believe this is the page, I could be wrong, hold on. Oh yes, hospitalization insurance. So just on the general fund alone, this is what it's cost us over the years. In 2022, $768,000. Just this year alone, we're expecting to go $660,000. It ebb and flows depending on circumstances, rates, whether people use our WRAP plan, things of that nature. Next year, we're guesstimating about $600,000. We are searching for alternative plans. We are contractually obligated to provide certain services because that's what we agreed to. Right now, no employee pays any money into the system except for their prescription copay.
That's
That's
only
it.
for, only for prescriptions.
So that's the benefit we give to offer a lower pay, and that is atypical of a lot of communities. But the question is that sustainable? Right now, we're fine. And the other thing is, can we find something that is just the same exact plan, but cheaper? And we're gonna start looking at that too. We've been looking for that for years, but it's not gonna be easy. Everyone knows healthcare is a hot button topic, but it's also very difficult to find the the sweet spot, because if there were, then everybody would be using it, and we wouldn't even be talking about this issue. So it's not gonna be easy, but we will be committed to looking at that for everybody. Also, I wanna bring your attention, for those who are new, we do have a corrective action plan, because our retirement fund for all of our employees, except for like people like me or the cops, everyone else, we have to have the funds at 60% funded, so we don't get a little bad boy note from the state. If we get below 60, which we're at like 58, 59, it just depends, we get that note and they want us to do a corrective action plan. So our corrective action plan, and this is like, I don't even know how many years we're in now, since 2019, maybe 2020, we've been paying an additional $100,000 extra into that fund to close that gap. You do that for 10 years, that's $1 million. We'll see if that helps. It has been helping a little bit. The stock market being up also helps. So it's just a matter of time. We will get above that 60%. We also got that huge grant last year when the state had a bunch of funds and they gave us a big chunk of money. We threw that in there. That brought us up like 3% or something like that. So we're right on the cusp. But every time we fall below, we're gonna get that letter. So what we'll end up doing is we'll just keep the path of 10 years. We'll see where we're at, and then if we think we should keep doing that, we'll make that decision. If we decide, no, we don't need to keep putting 100,000 in, we're doing good, we're at 65, we're at 70%, fingers crossed, then we pull that money back, and there's $100,000 in our general fund that we can use on other things in our community then, rather than paying off a pension balance. So, other than that, in this area, there's not much I wanted to bring up. Any questions on that? All right, moving to page 36, transfers out from the general fund. So here's where we do take monies and we send it to different areas. We are no longer making any transfer to the DDA. It's not necessary. We do transfer a certain amount of money to the local streets every year. We have to transfer something. We typically set a number. So I've given you $100,000 for the set. At the end of the day, I'll make the decision on how much will actually get transferred. You're giving me permission to spend up to $100,000 to move over to just a fund that we're not spending money on. It's for the street maintenance. Typically, we do not take the full amount you allow us to put over, because we have to see what the fund balance is gonna be at the end of the day and where we're at in the budget before we just say, just give them $100,000. Because we don't wanna set ourselves too short. So as long as we're putting a little bit of money in there, squirreling it away, it'll be okay. So this just sets a cap. And then typically after that, we don't really have any other transfers that go out from that fund. We have in the past, but not recently. All right, moving on to major streets. Does anybody want to take a quick little break since we've been talking about the most exciting thing in the world for 45 minutes? No, you want to keep going? Okay. Maybe there's one for torture.
Unless I.
So, major streets here, we're gonna skip past revenues, we're gonna skip past expenses. Typically, all this money comes from the state of Michigan. It fills in our, fills in activities that we do. So anything we do on a state highway, we get paid for. When we plow our streets, we get paid a portion of money. When we do pothole filling, or we do sidewalks, or we do any maintenance involved with that, they'll give us some money. It all comes from some. Good news is, we are probably gonna get about, I don't even wanna say it because I don't remember the number, but it's a significant chunk of money, less than 500, I believe. I think yearly coming into streets now, because of the new law they just passed, the new formula they just passed from the state. However, we are not updating it in this budget, because those numbers are all preliminary. When they come in, we'll just make the adjustment, and then we won't be able to spend them anyways, because you don't wanna spend money you don't have. And then next year, we'll be able to take the benefit of using that money, maybe. We can, we might use it on something, so we just gotta make sure we do it in a way that makes sense and is financially sound, and we're not just throwing pavement down and throw it down. So page 39, this is routine street maintenance. you got a couple, now some people will go, equipment rental, what are we renting equipment for? Well, we don't rent equipment except for the street sweeper, because our street sweeper is junk. We gotta replace it, but the last piece of equipment you'll probably ever hear me say we should replace is the street sweeper, because they're expensive, and you only use them like a couple times out of the year. Renting one is far more financially sound than buying one. However, we are trying to work with several governments where we're working right now. We haven't even come close to a proposal where maybe 4 cities buy a street sweeper and we share it amongst each other in the central region. So we're working on that potentially. That could be really exciting. But this rental equipment means like the state's paying us to use our equipment on streets. So that's money coming back to us. So it's confusing, yes, because it took me about 3 years to figure out, why are we paying a rental? That doesn't make any sense to me, but I finally got it figured out after like 3 years.
I'm just chuckling because you said it was really exciting. I'm
Yeah,
so glad that excites you, Nate.
that's exciting.
That's good, that's good.
When the governments are working together to solve problems. Moving on to page 40. I don't really have a lot to say on all this stuff, so we will be breezing through this, so I do apologize. It's really just atypical. The state gets charged it, they pay us. So this is traffic control again, signage, shutting stuff down, renting our equipment for signs, so on and so forth. Page 41, snow and ice control. Some of this is again, plows on the bottom, personal services, a lot of our guys' wages do get paid for that as well. Moving on to page 42, administrative bookkeeping. Yeah, that does seem like a lot of money, but we have to keep track of all this stuff. It just costs quite a bit of money to track all this stuff. So that pays for that. Page 43, M28 trunk line. They're paying for some of our employee benefits and personnel services with more maintenance related to just M28 business route. Page 44, more of the same on M28 trunk line, more of the same stuff, maintenance of that line. And also winter trunk line on M28 as well, the business route. So there's a lot of like nuances in this stuff. It becomes kind of repetitive, so I do apologize. Major streets, page 500, vehicle maintenance. This got zeroed out because this is where the auditor said we can't do it, so. More or less, they said we were double dipping because we were already getting paid. We didn't see it that way, but then after they explained it, we understood it, so. They told us no, so we have to listen to them. Major streets capital outlay, this is where some engineering costs come in and some capital improvement, monies that we'll be spending out of the capital outlay. So right here, you can see the little star for safe routes to school engineering.
You're missing a page.
Oh, are you on, you got page 47? What do you got there?
We're on, did we go?
Did I skip one?
46?
What do you got?
46, you said 500 major streets.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it was page 46.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
that was
then
the
no-
top left corner.
Everyone got page 47 at the top, it says 902 Major Street?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay, good, sorry about the confusion on that. So, here, you'll see these little stars. One of them relates to engineering costs, that's the top one, 75,000. That's what we gotta spend on the safe routes to school. So we got $1 million grant to put in some brand new sidewalks, not replacing old ones, but putting in brand new that don't exist to connect the schools better for people to ride bikes and also walk. So you'll hear more about that later. That's gonna probably commence sometime in June or July. The state has complete control over it, and we don't get any of that money. We just gotta spend that 75 as part of the grant match. The other star where it says, where it should be by the $85,000 mark, you see a blower lease, a loader lease, and a plow lease. So we're paying part of our equipment out of this fund rather than just out of the equipment millage or out of the sewer. So typically what we do when we buy a big piece of machinery, before, they would never buy them because they couldn't figure out how to fund them. That's why they did the equipment millage. So you could pay for them out of your equipment millage and your general fund. Well, I was able to convince the auditors that, well, you can't go fix the sewers if you don't plow the road. You can't plow the alleyways, you can't fix the electric. So we were able to take a little money from other funds to actually supplement that. And that makes it so that our equipment millage can be used for other stuff as well. So this is where part of this is coming in. This is the first time I think we've done this, where we've been saying, well, you know, we're getting paid by the state to use our equipment for rental, but we never can take that money and throw it on the other side, because you can't transfer that money over to the general fund. So we're charging it directly out of this fund so we can pay for part of those leases. Because they're paying us to rent that equipment, so it's to replace the equipment they've already used. Does that all make sense? Clear as mud? Anyway, so that's what some of that's going towards. Sidewalks, this is where I told you where we took the sidewalks out of the general fund. We put it in this fund. We're gonna spend roughly about $26,000 on sidewalks next year. Then we're into local streets. We're gonna pass through page 49, and we're gonna pass through page 50 to page 51. This is more of the same, but this is local streets. So major streets are ones that the state gives us money for. They don't give us much or any for local streets, for, not a ton. Same thing, some equipment rental. It's the same song and dance. I mean, I'm just gonna go through the pages if you guys have any specific questions on that. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We're on page 52 on traffic control, which is signage and stuff. Page 53, which is snow and ice removal. Page 54, more administrative bookkeeping. And that concludes our streets. The worst part of the budget, in my opinion. Okay, we're into the electric fund now on page 55. So this is its own separate fund. Now, have we taken money from the electric fund before to pay for other stuff? Yes, but we gotta do it in a legal way. So that's in something called a PILT, that's called payment in lieu of taxes. We can also do an administrative per diem, or I think it's called per diem, I might have that wrong. Sorry, I don't have that exactly right, but there's another word for it. We can take a certain amount based off the money we make, I believe it's up to 7% transferred over. We never do that. I mean, that's way too much money. We don't wanna do that because it'll cost more for electricity at the end of the day. But we do take some of that money and we use that for stuff in the general fund, and that's how we are able to get more things done in the community. So overall, you can see our budget revenues was projected at $5.4 million this year. It's projected at $4.3 million next year. This is all projected off of uses by WPPI, so I'm not gonna say why the cost has went down, but, well, part of it has to do with the actual use of fund balance on the very bottom. When we thought we were gonna have to spend that money, we didn't actually spend that money. That was related to the, substation. So there's where like a significant amount came down. But there's some other costs that came down as well. Specifically, wheeling charges is too. That's our cost with, when we were connected into UPCO. So moving on to page 56, which is the expenses. This has it broken down in different areas, and we're gonna go through those areas now. Page 57, customer billing. We're not up significantly, slightly about $14,000. This is just for running the office, the equipment in the office, the billing cycle, all that type of stuff. Page 58, administrative and general expenses. So this has to do with a lot of different things. This is where you'll see that tilt payment. If you look at the bottom, second to the bottom, electric tilt payment. One year we gave $200,000. Last year we only did 50. This year we're only gonna do 50. This coming year, we're asking to do 100. So it can vary depending on the circumstances. This also has things in here like wages, it'll have insurance in here for just the electrical folks. It'll have travel and training, so more, well, as it says, administrative type stuff related to electric fund, page 58.
Yeah, the city attorney fees is where we're seeing that again.
Yeah, those city attorneys, I tell you, like, that's all I
They do.
Poor Mike. Also, if you look on the next page, it continues. We got some, we have our bond payment for the substation, and we have our interest payment as well. And we also have our payment back to WPPI. So if you remember, everybody, we borrowed $500,000 at 0% interest rate from WPPI for the substation, and we're gonna pay them back $50,000 every year for the next 10 years. And then we're paying back our substation at the same time. Sometimes we do a transfer, not always, well, I should say we typically always do, I'm sorry. The bottom, second to the bottom on page 59, which says transfer to city improvement, we typically put about 50,000 in there. We did decrease that this year because we didn't need as much money, and we just wanted, we're trying to put less burden on the electric fund right now. We wanna see where things shake out for a year. Like last year, I was really shocked that we were up $500,000 in funds. That was a real shock to me. I wanna see where we're gonna be at the end of this year before we start spending anything else. We just gotta take a recovery year. So, all right, any questions on electric fund?
The de minimis to general fund, is that because it's zeroed out because of the new power project?
Actually, that was that thing I was saying, the word, so the de minimis is that extra charge that we can put on the fund to cover expenses in the general fund.
Right,
But we're foregoing that because we want that recovery to happen quicker.
okay, yeah.
So rather than go that direction, we're just gonna kinda, we also might eliminate that potentially, because we might get ourselves in a double tipping situation, and I don't wanna be in that, so we're watching that kinda closely, so for now, we zeroed that out. Excuse me. Purchase power, on page 60, this is how much it costs us to buy electricity year to year, it's roughly about $2 million. That's our biggest expense. We do not make our own power, we only buy it and we distribute it, so, the efficiency should pick up on that a little bit. Moving on to page 61 for distribution, so distribution has to do with, all the power lines, all the power poles, all the, components that have to, do with that. And you can see on the next page, 62, it's gone from roughly 2 million for this year down to 1 million. And part of that has to do because like distribution, when we built that substation in here, that was thrown in there, some of it was thrown in there. And now we don't have that, that substantially decreases the amount of money being spent out of that fund. So we're just about even where we were before we started building the substation. And that ebb and flows a little bit too, because you can see in 2022, it was 1.2 million, then it dropped to 866, then 763, then popped way up to 2 million. So it just depends on what's going on year to year. In that, just a reminder, we also got AMI, there's those meters we were talking about that you can read from City Hall, they're still being installed. We have a downtown underground study going on because we're gonna be doing that sewer and water project sewer project downtown. So we would like to take a lot of the electrical lines in the alleyways and put those underground. That will be safer and also make those pieces of equipment last longer over time. We also have a pole study. What does that mean? Well, they go and they take a little hammer and they'll pop the thing like this, and then they'll do a little drill on it too, and they put a little thing on it that says this pole's been inspected then. And the core sample is really what gives you the information. It'll tell you whether when your poles should be replaced over time. So it's kind of like checking out how many potholes you have. You want to get those filled. And then there's a couple of expenses being paid with some equipment out of this as well. All right, so now we're on to wastewater, also known as sewer. We're gonna pass through page 63 and 64. We're gonna go straight to sanitary sewers expenditures. Oh, this is page. Okay. So so this is where your wages get paid out of. Again, there'll be capital outlay in here. This capital outlay, you can see some expenses for the blower, lease payments for different things. You also see in here, we have the Hungerford and Prince Street project in here. And we also have some valve replacements and checks we're gonna be doing on one of our lift stations. If you don't know what a lift station is, it's like if you're in a lower part of town, it takes all the undesirable sewage and pumps it up to a higher level up to Ishpeming. And then goes into their sewer treatment plant, so. We have about 5 of those, and they take a lot of beating, so we gotta make sure we maintain those properly. Moving on to page 66, account and collection. This is the same old stuff. We bill people, collection fees, sending out bills, communication, so on and so forth. Page 67, general expenses. This has to do, again, with attorneys, bond payments, some personnel services are in here, insurance for hospital, pension, all the stuff that doesn't go in all the other departments that are just kind of oddball stuff. Any questions about anything on this? I do want to note that I believe in 27 we are going to be retiring one of our bonds just in time to have our next bond. So that's a good thing. At least that'll be gone. We'll be able to have the capacity to put in new stuff that we need to drastically replace. So, all right, moving on to the next page, which is the water fund. We're gonna pass through page 68 and page 69 to page 70. We have water pumping. This is pays for electricity mostly. Pretty good in this. Moving on to page 71, this is wages primarily. Some engineering costs are involved, depending on the circumstance. Some equipment rental, like that's real equipment rental too, not anything the state pays us. So, moving on to page 72, water meters. This is reading the meters, buying meters and replacing them primarily. Page 73 is transmission and distribution. So we do not make our own water here. We buy our water from the Nagani-Ishpeming Water Authority. Basically, when we say distribution, that's pipes, the purchase of it, exercising valves, the fire, what do you want to call those, fire plugs that we have, making sure those are running, hydrants. Covers the majority of that stuff. There's some capital improvements in here sometimes. And I don't believe any bonds are paid in here. That's in the next one. You'll see we have some capital outlay, page 74. Some leases again. A little bit of engineering for the 2027, 2028 water sewer project that we have to get some, probably some soil samples. We can't do that in-house, we don't have that ability. And then we have building on the next page, 75, same old stuff as the other ones.
Blower lease, that's with the one that we bought, that we shared those leases with the other funds, correct?
Yeah. Unfortunately, the auditors told us we can only charge so much.
Yeah, drill down.
That's what they told me we could charge, unfortunately. Going on to page 76, general expenses, again, this is some personnel services, a lot of bonds are in here, some retirement stuff, attorney stuff, OPEB stuff. OPEB is other, post-employee benefits, other post-employee benefits, so people who get health care or stuff like that from us until the age of whatever, 65 typically, we pay those too. Those are benefits that we allotted under the contract, so we are obligated to pay those as well. Insurance is in here, so on and so forth. And then moving on, any questions before I move on? It's a lot of stuff, sorry. Page 77, DDA. So you can see the DDA is expected to bring about $84,000 in. $35,000 is in taxes, Everything else is in people and businesses giving us money for the events. And the events are typically done because it brings business in, and that's how we keep the hoopla going in town, where people wanna invest in the community, keep job stabilization, so on and so forth. And if we continue these operations, which are going well, then we could see more businesses come to town, just because of that alone. So, it's just a normal function of DDA. Moving on to the expenditures, you can see this equals the same amount, 84,000. Most of it's gonna be related to events, and some of it's gonna be operational. We will be hiring a part-time person between DDA, DPW, and Parks to work 3 days a week, who is an employee who will be retiring, working from like May to October, to do some specialized services to relieve some of the employees that are picking up some major services that we just need to get them off of and put them over where they were originally supposed to be. So this will help quite a bit, and having that experience will help quite a bit. In addition to that, there's a program in here called MSU First Impressions, that the DDA will be looking at hiring, and that's MSU, Michigan State University, coming in. They're gonna do a little conference, and then they're gonna review the downtown and the community, and they're looking at it from a lens of a person coming in for tourism. What are you doing great in? Where do you need to improve in? So having that outside person telling us is gonna be highly beneficial, and it's super cheap. Moving on to page 79, we're in the revenues of the senior center. So we're expected to bring about 426,000 in, and we're gonna spend roughly about 424,000 in. We have decreased this budget significantly, and that's only primarily because they cannot get the employees that they want to fill. They can't find employees to fill them. So rather than inflate the budget by $60,000 more, we never fill them, we just eliminated it. But I have told the director, if she finds somebody to fill some of those spaces, we can come back and we can always do a budget adjustment and give that money back. But you don't wanna just keep trying to find money when you're not gonna spend that money anyways. And that's been typical for the last 4 to 5 years. In addition to that, we have decreased our our contribution to the senior center. If you look under City of Negaunee, we went on the first page, 79, line item 580, it's the fourth one down. We typically give about 30 to 35. I decreased that to 15,000 due to the fact that they don't have those employees, so on and so forth. Now, the rest of the senior center is covered by the trips that they raise money on, the senior millage that the county pays them, and other funding they bring in from other grant items. So they're whole right now. If they need more money, we'll cover that next year if we have to. So, Mayor.
So, Mr. City Manager, then, there's nothing in the manager recommendation column, so is it the department request column that we're?
It probably just didn't get moved over,
Okay.
yeah. I don't fill these things out ever, so Ann probably, this one came in late,
Okay,
like that's typically what happened there, so. But yeah, all that stuff will be moved over,
Just wanna know
100%. Yep, thank you
we
for
can
that
ask for,
question.
yeah,
I'll make a note of that so she remembers. And it's the same thing on the other line too for the expenses. And we've been trying for years to fill those spots. They're just very difficult. Everywhere it's hard to find employees. It's just the way it is. They get volunteers and stuff like that, but it's not as easy as people think it is, because there's some private information and Medicare, Medicaid, and all that stuff's involved to some degree, yada, yada, yada. Because it can even make things impossible sometimes. All right, so now we're gonna move into specialized funds. This is the city improvement fund. So if you remember, we transfer money from the electric fund into this fund, and we use it for various things like farmer's market. We have used it for paying, like, I believe, fees like LSCP, QPAD, and numerous other agencies. if I'm not mistaken. If Ann was here, she'd tell you 100% what we spend in there, but I don't have that information in front of me. But those are some of the things I've heard her say we paid before, in the past. This is revenues, we're looking at 81, but page 82, oh, there you go, I answered my own question, I guess you already done that. So you can see, those are the things that we pay it on, and it just goes for the general benefit of the full community. LSCP does a wonderful job, QPAD does, this West End Hub thing is a wonderful asset to all of our businesses in our community. The MML thing was different, what did that have to do with? I'd have to ask Ian what that was for. That, I'm sorry, I don't know. We also have our AEDs in here as well, so. I don't,
The Michigan Municipal League.
it is, but, it's probably the membership, that's what it is, yeah. I was sitting there trying to wrap my brain, like, what would we be paying them for, but we do pay that membership, yeah.
I'll call Josh.
Yeah, no joke. Alright, so we're gonna move on to page 83, this is revenues for what we call salvage inspections. Is a service we provide to the police department, with certified officer, I think we only have one right now, two now, look at that. Are you one of them? No? No? It's where the officers get to crawl around on the ground, look at cars that have issues, yada yada. We get a very small fee for it, so, well, maybe that's the salvage one, but whatever, we get a very small amount of money for it, it kinda just builds up. I can't remember what we can use the fund for, I think it has to do with like traffic safety or car safety. We never spend any money on it because you get such a small amount of money every year. Eventually we'll spend some money out of it. And then moving on to page 85, forfeitures, we haven't had any forfeitures for years. A drug forfeiture is when, and I think it's been kind of changed quite a bit now because there's some people that broke some rules, obviously. But when the cops typically did a drug raid and they found money involved with that, the money could be collected by that department and used in the department for operational expenses, I believe. Sometimes cars and boats and homes too can be forfeited as well. We haven't had any of that. I believe the law in Michigan has changed drastically on that issue. Moving on to state aid to the library. So we do get a little bit of funding for the library. And we spend a little bit of money on that. She typically uses that on books, buys new books, and she also spends some of the money that we give her on books on the library side as well. Moving on to page 89, we have law enforcement monies. This is like a grant, so we're really not gonna get anything from that anymore. So it's kind of like, until we get like 4 or 3 more years of budgets, this thing will zero out and nothing will be there. Crime prevention, sometimes we get money for that, typically we don't. You can see we haven't got anything for years. Cemetery fund is also known as the perpetual care fund. Now we had some issues in that in the past where money was mistakenly spent from that. So you cannot spend any money out of the fund except for interest proceeds. That's how it's perpetual. You perpetually can't use it. So what happens is when I buy a lot at the cemetery, I pay $5 or $10 or whatever it is, that goes into the fund and it just sits there. So to me, it's not super efficient just because of the fact that you really can't use it to help the cemetery much. But we get about $3,500 interest a year, so we use that towards the cemetery. Moving on to page 95, building improvement fund. Now, sometimes we do put money in this fund, and when we say by building, it actually should be buildings. And we have spent money out of this for things at City Hall typically. I don't remember all the projects we spent on it. It could be spent on other things around building wise for the city. Typically, if it has to do like with, let's say for instance, if it was the if you went up to the electrical substation, we have that little building that's up there too. If something happened to that building, we're not spending money on this fund, we're spending on the electric fund. So typically this has to do with everything that's not an enterprise fund, it's just general buildings. As you can see, we're not taking any revenue or putting anything there, we're also not spending any money. Moving on to Parks and Rec levy, so this is a good example to show you what we actually bring in for money every year and what we spend on these villages. So this is the Parks and Rec one, which was a 30-year levy as well. Typically, it brings in about 110,000, we're about 135 next year. That's increased because of the uncapping and new homes being built. All right, now we're gonna go over and we spend about what we break, what we take out. That gets split up between like recreation, ice arena, and parks. All right, on the next page, 99, this is the equipment millage, which is an 8-year millage. Expires in 29. That's bringing in $200,000 next year. It's gonna spend $128,000. Out of that right now, we're paying for a fire pumper at $76,000, roughly 77. We're paying for a police vehicle at $18,000. Blower lease at 5, loader at 5, plow at $3,700, and sweeper rental at 20. So we're not spending it all, because as we go forward, we're more or less buying things through leasing them. When we say lease them, we're not actually gonna return them, it's a lease to own situation. That way we can replace as much equipment as we can at the same time, because all of our equipment is really bad. So eventually we're gonna get out of that hole, but it's gonna take quite some time, a lot of time. All right, millage for the street, this next time around is gonna bring in $277,000. So look how crazy that is. From 2022, at 211, we're already at 277. And that's just from the new taxes we're collecting from all the uncapping again, and all the new homes and businesses. So as those grow, that fund grows, that means we can take care of our roads even quicker. This is a huge benefit for the community. We plan on using roughly about $300,000 of that next year. Now you're gonna say, well, wait a minute, you just said we want to bring in 277. We have a fund balance too, so we're gonna use a little bit of fund balance, because we gotta get that Hungerford Prince, and hopefully we can get Ann Street, part of Ann Street in there as well. Then lastly, this one is kind of, you know, a wait and see approach. This is the Vista project. Right now, you can see that we were saying we're gonna spend about $2.3 million. That's what's left with that grant, maybe a little bit more than that. And then that's what we say we have for revenue. Then we say we're gonna spend about $2.5 million. So we don't know yet. We're waiting for the state to get back to us on the plans. They have to approve them. They did get back to us finally and said, hey, you can get tax credits, which you guys might not know anything about what that means right now, but we will explain it later, because it's very, very much more boring than this. And we don't want to discuss that tonight anyways. But we will be bringing you information soon concerning the Vista as proceeding with the project, putting out a bid, and going after those tax credits from the state and the federal government. And the reason we're doing that is so we can prevent having to spend money from our general fund. And at the same time, we'll be looking for some additional funding from different state agencies that we can take advantage of, and from the folks in the public that want to see this project move forward. We got some people that have significant money that have talked about giving us money, but we got to see if they still want to go through with that. So, with that said, that is the budget for 2026 proposed. Any questions from anybody about this?
That's, I'm right.
Yeah, sure is, dude, sure is, yeah.
And we are not voting, so now if anybody wanted to make any changes, like if somebody said, wait a minute, I don't wanna spend $40,000 on that, tonight would have been the night to do that, you still got one more chance to do that. So first, I'm gonna premise the question, or preface the question, does anybody want to make any significant changes to the budget as it stands right now?
I do have a question.
Amanda, go ahead.
When I noticed a few different times, and maybe you can explain to me why, when, like, I noticed it, I think 3 or 4 times in it's retirement, forgive me, but city manager retirement, 4,800 comes out in a few different places. Why isn't it all just in one place?
It gets spread over like, so like, I don't do all my work only in the general fund. I manage the electric department, the water department, sewer department, so instead I put it all in the general fund because that's the hardest fund to replenish. By design, we take it out of those other ones, so the burden's not just on the one. Otherwise, it would suck all the money out of the general fund when, those other funds, they should be paying part of that because I manage those funds as well or oversee them, you know? So yeah, you'll see that a lot, like in a lot of different areas that, is across the board. It's very repetitive. It's because they split them up in different funds here and there to lessen the burden.
John, you had something?
Yeah, just, I mean, I think kind of the elephant in the room from last meeting is the ice arena, and, we're only allocating $4,000 in capital outlay for the ice arena. Might be prudent to, look at, can we increase that number at all? I mean, we're gonna have more than $4,000 in,
You can,
emergency
but
repairs or
the
whatever.
plan is let the millage pass
Yeah.
with the bond, and we'll fix all the stuff at the same time rather than put $4,000 towards it. Because I mean, if we have to make a repair before then,
Mhm.
we're gonna have to.
So we'll just deal with that as
I think
a
that's
budget
probably-
amendment,
Yeah, for sure. Because we can't project like,
this is gonna fit.
yeah, because like we've had a water heater fail. It was like a $35,000 expense.
Yep.
The Zamboni failed. Well, I mean, it was on Fritz. That was $140,000 expense, I think. And then there was compressors, and then one thing after another. So those are unfortunately the emergency expenses. These are the small things that he wanted to do before we even talked about the millage and before the thing didn't start working. He just wanted to fix the toilets because the toilets are super old.
Mhm.
But those are all gonna be tied in together, so that's why that number is so low right now. Otherwise, we'll be kinda like spending funds up front that we don't need to spend, or we could be spending the ones that are gonna be, those millage funds from that bond, and keep our general fund, you get it.
I 100% understand.
So that's the
But,
reason why it's so
but
low.
perception is a lack of commitment or less commitment than in previous years
Yeah.
to the facility.
Yeah.
We're coming out, we're saying, we're gonna spend less on this.
Yeah.
I understand we're saying there's a plan in place,
Yeah,
but,
well, just the one thing I'll point
I
out
mean,
too.
if there's money in the budget and we don't end up spending it, that
Yeah.
also works that way as well,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Well, the one
just because
thing,
it's there doesn't mean we have to
yeah,
spend
and we can change it, I mean, to me, it doesn't matter, it's up to you guys. The one thing I'll point out in the, on page. Find it here. Okay, page 3.
it. Page
Very loud, bottom line, 699. So right now, we are only projected to use in our fund balance $135,878. That means we're drawing our fund down from 1.5 million roughly to potentially 1.6 or 1.4. So, I mean, from my recommendation is wait for something to happen because we're going to make the investment no matter what.
Mhm.
If it's something that's integral to keeping the facility going, because right now the only thing that would go offline is gonna be that chilling unit, most likely.
Mhm.
And if that happens, that's gonna be pretty hairy because it depends on when it occurs. If it happens tomorrow, then we have to go rent out a $30,000 unit and then spend $20,000 every month to the season's over. I don't think we can do that.
So how about this then, from a budget perspective?
Yeah,
If the plan is a millage,
yes,
there's going to be a cost associated for the city to orchestrate putting that forth to the voters.
yes.
Roughly,
Well, so what would happen is what we wanna do, probably $8,000 to $10,000, that money will come out of the millage as well, so.
understood, to
Yeah.
repay it. But from a budgeting end, we're gonna have to spend that before it gets repaid.
You will, but you won't,
I mean, we're gonna
because
borrow with that in the loan, we're gonna be able to borrow,
you'll be
the
able to
money
use it
to-
as an eligible expense. Like engineering, like we did
Mhm.
all the engineering right now, we can charge the engineering to that as well. So what typically happens in that circumstance is, we may spend it out of the general fund, but then later on, the auditor's gonna come back and say, we gotta move this over here, cause it's gonna go under the millage instead.
understood.
So-
But the other reason that I think we might wanna consider at least budgeting that 8 or 10 grand is,
Mhm.
hopefully not, but there is a possibility it doesn't pass. In which case, we're gonna have to spend that money to try to convince, people to pass it, and it doesn't pass, and then that is coming out of our budget. Cause we're not gonna have a millage to pay for.
Yes, that's
So,
very true.
so we should budget for that,
Yeah, we
and
can
it's not
do
gonna move the needle a whole lot, right? I mean, if we're spending budgeting $8,000 more out of 5 million, it's inconsequential.
I think that's prudent without a vote, Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna talk to Judy to find out if that should go in the elections or if it should go into the ice arena fund, so we can figure that out. We'll put it in here for you guys and it'll be in the budget, so. Are there any other, the good idea, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's
And this comes up after this was made, that's a great point, so thank you for that, John, that's good.
So,
You said,
if, just for me to understand, okay, like you're saying, John, it's, okay, you put that much more into what you're saying. Let's say, okay, the millage and all that stuff goes through, so then that extra $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on top of, the 4,000 we already said this evening, where would that go to? Would that kind of fall back into,
So what would happen, I'll answer the question for you, so you make it simple. What John's saying is, because it's gonna cost us money for the election, roughly $10,000, let's budget for it. And if it fails, we have it covered. But if it passes, then we already have that as an eligible expense, and it'll get put over here rather than come out of our pocket right now. The rest of the money you're talking about, like the toilets and the whatever else, we just wouldn't spend that money, we just spend it in another thing.
right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, but that's a wonderful, wonderful idea, so thank you for that. Any other suggestions or thoughts on changing anything? Okay, so here's the next question. Do we want to sit through another one of these next week? Or do you think we'll be good? We'll bring you back the budget with the changes that you guys suggested already and the fixes that we have here. And it'll be at the November council meeting, you'll vote on it, and you'll be all set to go. In the meantime, what will happen is, you will get an updated version, there's not very many changes in here, but you'll get an updated version. That you will have opportunities to call me or set up meetings with me and talk about it. Or if you want, we can always come back here on the 23rd and sit in here and do this all over again if you want to, so. What's the consensus?
I'm satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, as far as a work session, I think we're there, and if these few tweaks come in the next edition, I'm comfortable being able to adopt it in November.
I'm fine with it.
Anybody else have a different opinion?
Guess we should have had a break here.
Oh my gosh. All right, well, that's all I have this evening, so thank you guys for sitting through this long thing. We will make the, changes that we need to in the budget you saw, and we'll add in that 10,000 for the election at least. And I think everything else should be fine, so,
Thank you, very good.
thank you.
With that, moving on to number 7, public comment. I'm gonna close public comment. Number 8, council comments. I'm just gonna throw this one up in the air. If anybody has a comment this evening, by all means, we just shared our comments just a week ago. Nothing? No, as for myself, I mean, it's just us tonight, right? And one thing what we stand for as municipal government, as local elected officials, we do portray the city, right? We are the professionals, we are, portray professionalism and candor, throughout the city, so, when we do have, meetings and we do have a lot of public here, and there's tension in the air and there's emotion in the air, let's do our best, to remember where we're sitting and that we're representing those that are sitting in front of us, we're representing ourselves. And let's do our best to watch emotion, and present ourselves as professionals, right? We're trusted amongst our constituents, and I think that's important to be able to step out into the public and they'll be able to talk to us, and trust that we are making the right decisions, for them, for our community. Great work tonight, thank you, everybody. Mr. City Manager, everything?
I've said enough.
You said enough, all right, Mr. City Attorney?
No.
You're gonna go?
Nothing, no.
With that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion adjourned?
All right, thank you,
I'll
Tracy,
second.
for speaking. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned, thank you.